Whoa, hello everyone, this is Crota coming at you, giving you an update on Heart of the Swarm, and a really big update indeed. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't normally check out the Blizzard website or the Battle.net website, but there was a very interesting article that has been posted out there already. Now, let's go ahead and talk about it. And I'm going to try to avoid just reading it to you, but I haven't read this already, so you're going to get my initial reactions. Now, the first thing that seems to be coming into play is that the Shredder is no longer a unit, and perhaps it was a little bit confusing, and it was very rarely ever used for what its sole intended purpose was for. So Shredder is already out. In addition, the Warhound is also in a little bit of a redesign. So what you guys have seen and what I've seen at BlizzCon 2011 is pretty much a completely different game than what we see it now. Also, the Thor, it looks like they're going to have an anti-spider, an anti-air spider mine of some way. Perhaps they're being able to throw up a cluster of just damaging bombs in the air. If Mutalisks do fly by, they take a lot of damage. Not quite sure how effective that would be, as unless those units are cloaked, then the Mutalisks can simply just fly around those. Now, moving down into the Protoss, the Oracle is still functioning as the intended unit, but I think the Replicon has been or the Replicant has been completely cut. That was one of my concerns. The Replicant just seemed like whatever you can do, I can do better for Protoss. And although it was a fun unit, perhaps something that you'll see in Legacy of the Void in terms of the single player campaign, it didn't really feel like it belonged in competitive play. Now, the Tempest was a powerful splash anti-air, but as you guys have seen, we've already gotten a boost to the Phoenixes with the Fleet Beacon, so the Tempest isn't really needed in order to challenge those Mutalisks anymore. So we'll see what's going to happen. It looks like it's going to be a long-range siege weapon that can target both air and ground, so that seems to be very good. But then again, I don't quite understand why they just can't increase the range of carriers to siege. That would really just make the carrier much more viable, increase the range. I think a lot of people have been talking about that, but let's just move along. This is just my initial reactions. Crota uncensored, even though I usually do censor myself a lot anyways. Now, the Nexus abilities was the Nexus ability that says that mass recall allows Protoss to be more aggressive. And apparently that is still gonna stay in play, but okay, so hold on. Let me read this. We're all also experimenting with some Nexus abilities. One example is a mass recall that allows the Protoss to be more aggressive. They can move out onto the map with their slower sentry zealot force, and if things work out, recall the force back to their base, and if and when things go wrong. All right, so that's pretty much what exactly we saw from BlizzCon. Perhaps we will see a little bit more as well coming in from the Nexus. Right now, I really like the idea of adding in or keeping the Nexus mass recall. It puts in a lot of tension for Protoss, and it pretty much helps Protoss in that Chrono Boost really didn't scale well late in the game. Mules were a really effective. Larva Injection, really effective. The Nexus, you can Chrono Boost, didn't really have that much big bang for your buck. The only thing that I would be concerned about, or I would question, or would like to see from the Nexus is I don't want to see like a mass Zealot rush get recalled at like the 10-minute stage in the game, and they just sacrificed for a Chrono Boost. So perhaps put a little bit of a tech requirement on that mass recall. Say the Citadel, or not a Cybernex core, this not Citadel of Adun. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the Twilight Council would probably be a very safe bet to allow to remotely call units back, or even the Fleet Beacon. Both would be very helpful. Now let's take a look at the Zerg. So taking a look at the Zerg, and they say that they have been pretty much unchanged. Swarm Host is still being used very well, and it looks like they've decided to keep the Overseer and make the Viper a pure caster. I like this, even though I like the ability for a Viper to give the detection to any other unit. the reason why the Overseer was one of those tricky units was that the Zerg weakness was essentially not being able to get a detector. As long as you had good Overlord spread, then you would also be able to get a detector anywhere on the map relatively quickly. One of the strength and weaknesses of a Zerg that their sole detection is also their farm and also a giant target that can easily get taken out. Now, in the addition of Deduct, the Viper has also the ability to blind biological units. Okay, so it looks like they're going to give Dark Swarm as well. The Viper has some slightly different abilities. In addition to Abduct, which I believe was a hook, blind only biological units, which is very interesting. I didn't catch that at first, the first time I read it. So siege tanks would still be able to shoot out. And the only units that are range units that are not biological, a range unit that is not. Yeah, I think most range units are mechanical except for Marines and Marauders. Well, then you got the entire Zerg force. All right, so maybe it will make Zerg versus Zerg a little bit more interesting as well. I'm trying some different abilities on the Nydus network to allow you to spawn different types of Nydus worms. That would be interesting. We'll see what type of Nydus worms will be coming out. A worm that can spew creep across several screens to create a Zerg assault highway. As well as a Zerg that can only attack enemy buildings, meant to be as a ground-based Zerg base raider. Oh wait, that would be interesting. So we'll see how that works. I think the Nydus network was one of those tech paths that wasn't really utilized all too much, just because it dead ended really fast. Having additional types of worms spewing creep, being able to eat buildings, that does feel pretty Zergy. So we'll see how that all works. I will be casting more StarCraft 2, but once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.